Nigeria joins the rest of the Muslim world in celebrating El-Maulud, commemorating the birthday of Holy Prophet Muhammad. Labour wants governors pay the 30,000 naira minimum wage or forget 2019 elections. In international news, U.S. judge blocks President Donald Trump's asylum restrictions. And in sport, Rome makes 6 changes in Super Eagles lineup against Uganda.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Nigerians have joined other Muslim faithful around the world in celebrating El-Maulud, or the birthday of the Holy Prophet Muhammad today. President Muhammadu Buhari greeted Nigerians in general and Muslim communities in particular on this occasion. In his message to the nation, released in a statement, the president prayed for peace, happiness and good health for all Nigerians. He also said the country is making great progress on the issue of security, the war against corruption, reform and restructuring of the economy, and the provision of needed infrastructure. He called on the nation to support these efforts in order to be fully successful. He says the country should let the spirit of the celebration of the Holy Prophet's birth promote mutual harmony and tolerance among citizens. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party, in its El-Maulud message released by its spokesman, Kola Ologbodiyan, has urged Nigerians to use the occasion to pray for the nation for a rebirth of a sense of national unity. The party also calls on Nigerians to have the fear of God and love one another. It calls for citizens to despise all divisive and disruptive tendencies. The party also says as the country prepares for next year's elections, people should pray for God's guardians. It also says the birth of the Holy Prophet Muhammad teaches the triumph of light over darkness, good over evil, truth over falsehood, peace over strife, and faith over despair, among others. It calls on Nigerians to reach out to the needy, the sick, the deprived, especially victims of violence across the country. Even with the air of celebration on El-Maulud, the minimum wage issue is still hot. Nigerian governors and President Buhari were holed up in a closed-door meeting in Abuja on Monday to find ways of resolving this volatile issue. Details on the meeting's resolutions were not available to journalists, but some outlets are reporting that the meeting was deadlocked. Some news outlets say the governors talked to the proposal of 22,000 naira made in October. Another outlet is reported to have said the governors have embraced the federal government's 24,000 naira proposal. Deputy President of the Trade Union in Congress, Sunday Sanako, was reported to have rejected both proposals in a telephone interview with the National Daily. Organized labor is reported to have warned the governors if they reject the 30,000 figure, they should forget about the 2019 elections. The Pan-Yoruba socio-cultural group Afenifere, the Ohanes Ndigbo, and Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka are all calling for the restructuring of the country. In separate speeches during the Handshake Across Nigeria event in Lagos on Monday, the two groups and the professor said restructuring is necessary because of the disregard for the rule of law and the high level of insecurity in the country. Soyinka said in a keynote speech that states must be allowed to exert authority and control over their natural resources so they can set their own priorities. He said the youth must mobilize and take collective action to transform governance in the country. President of Ohanes Ndigbo, Chief John Nwodo, recommends a restructuring plan that would allow states to be sovereign in their education, health, mineral resources and other areas crucial to their development. Chief Ayo Adebanjo of the Afenifere group said Nigeria should restructure back to the early days of Nigeria when regions were allowed to run and take possession of resources within their territories. He called for a true federal system. Dr. Tokunbo Awolowo Dosunmu, Young Progressive Party presidential candidate, Dr. Kingsley Moghalu, Shina Adegbenro of Kowa Party and Victor High of the Youth Democratic Party were also there and endorsed the call for restructuring. The trial of former Ekiti State Governor Ayodele Fayose is on the way in Lagos. At the trial on Monday, a prosecution witness, Damola Otunyana, a banker, told the Federal High Court the 3 aircraft flew 1.2 billion naira from Lagos to Ekiti State for delivery to Fayose. He said former Minister of State for Defense Musili Obanikoro instructed the cash withdrawals from the account of a company, Sylvan Unamari Limited, in June 2014. Otuyena said he accompanied the bullion van that transported the cash to the airport. He was his bank's head of cash in transit services at the time. Fayose is on trial for allegedly receiving and keeping 1.2 billion naira and $5 million reportedly stolen from the Office of the National Security Advisor. EFCC argues that this is contrary to the Money Laundering Act. The trial continues in late January. Disruptions to telecommunications services in Abuja and 8 other states are said to be imminent. Telecom operators say unless the federal government intervenes to stop a shutdown of their facilities, Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria says 150 of its base transceiver stations are not operational because of a lockdown of their mast in Kogi State. There are disputes between the operators and Kogi State over charges and levies. Association Chairman Benga Adebayo said the lockdown was ordered by Kogi Ministry of Environment and Mineral Resources and Kogi State Environmental Protection Board, acting in compliance by Kogi State Internal Revenue Service. He said this action could lead to total communication shutdown in the state and parts of the Federal Capital Territory. 9 border states with Kogi could also be affected. An audit report released by Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative shows that even with abundant deposits of solid minerals in the country, the solid minerals sector was only able to provide jobs for 0.3% of the population. The report also shows that the sector exported only $41 million worth of minerals, mainly to China and Spain. It also contributed a measly fraction of a percentage point to the gross domestic product. China and Spain purchased $33 million to the total export. The report also states that the sector is non-compliant with the Environmental Protection and Rehabilitation Fund requirements of the 2007 Minerals and Mining Act. It recommends that the government facilitates the establishment of that fund to ensure operators meet their environmental obligations. 45 Nigerian non-governmental organizations and academic institutions have received a grant of about $500,000 from the United States Consulate in Lagos. The grant is given to support a variety of worthwhile projects in the areas of human rights, transparency in governance, freedom of the media, women and youth empowerment, health education, entrepreneurship, and the promotion of mutual understanding. The U.S. Consulate says the grant would also promote a healthier and happier population in Nigeria. U.S. Consul General John Bray applauded the recipients for their work to improve the lives of community members. He said this is part of the U.S. government's support for Nigeria's economic development and strengthening of communities. Coming up, African stories. Spanish Prime Minister visits Morocco to discuss migration issues. And later, international news, President Trump loses another immigration round in the court. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ENN News. Now to news around Africa. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez made his first official visit to Morocco on Monday to push for greater cooperation between the two countries on tackling migration. Sanchez said after talks to Moroccan government, migration is a shared responsibility and called for a reinforcement of that cooperation. He was accompanied by a government delegation for his first visit to the North African nation since taking office in June. Spain has become the main entry point for migrants crossing the Mediterranean this year, with majority departing from Morocco. Figures from the International Organization for Migration show that more than 50,000 migrants have crossed into Spain so far this year. Moroccan authorities say at least 68,000 illegal attempts were stopped between January and the end of September. Morocco says the complex and important migration question cannot be resolved solely through a security approach, but that it is important to favor the development of the partner countries in Africa. Throughout the year, Spanish ministers and officials have traveled to Rabat to discuss security issues and migration. Madrid has been pressing the European Union for months to unlock funds for Morocco to tackle or better tackle people smuggling into the bloc. A senior Zambian police commander has defended the rights of 6 activists to protest. The 6 are on trial for staging a demonstration at Parliament over a $42 million firefighting procurement deal. In a magistrate court in Lusaka, Province Deputy Police Commissioner Geoffrey Kunda says the accused have the constitutional right to demonstrate as they complied with the law. He added that an attempt to verbally ban the march may have led to the situation and the arrest of the campaigners. Kunda said his office failed to respond to a notice given by the protesters signaling their intention to picket Parliament during the Finance Minister's budget speech last year. The 6 have pleaded not guilty to charges of disobeying a lawful order and insisted they had a right to protest within the grounds of Parliament. Zambia's opposition has accused President Lungu of increasingly authoritarian behavior. A senior official in an influential faction of Ethiopia's ruling coalition has accused Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on Monday of ethnic profiling in an anti-corruption drive that has since caused affected. Chairperson of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, Debretsion Gebremichael, says the arrest of more than 60 senior military and intelligence officers in recent weeks was an attack on ethnic Tigrayans, a group that has long held disproportionate power in government and in the security services. He says the arrest targeting individuals accused of corruption and human rights have veered from course and are being used to bring Tigrayan people to their knees. He warned the mass arrest should not be used as a cover for political aims. The Khashoggi murder is complicating Saudi Arabia's relationships even deep into Africa. South African arms maker Daniel has a problem because its potential savior is Saudi Arabia, which is now drawing fierce global criticism of the Khashoggi murder. State-owned Daniel now needs the kind of help that the deep-pocketed Saudis can provide. Saudi Arabia is seeking a broad partnership with Daniel that would include acquisition of the company's minority stake in a joint venture with Germany. The Saudis are keen to close the deal by the end of next month. They are on a drive to build a domestic arms industry, but traditional suppliers worry about its human rights record. Saudi Arabia's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, says the Saudi offer should be rejected. It says putting South Africa's space defense firm at the disposal of a murderous despot would make the whole nation complicit in the human rights atrocities of the regime of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Saudi Arabia denies that the Crown Prince ordered Khashoggi murder, but the American CIA says it has conclusive evidence he did. Madagascar election results show 2 former presidents, Andry Rajoelina and Marc Ravalomanana, have topped the polls and will now compete in a runoff next month. Final results released on Saturday by the country's Senate Election Commission shows neither candidate won the 50% of votes required for a first-round outright victory. Rajoelina has 39.19%. The commission says the current president secured only 8.84% of the vote, before adding that the voter turnout was 54.3%. All three candidates out of 36 total have alleged fraud and malpractice by election authorities. They also threatened fierce legal appeals. Regional and international observers reported very minor anomalies during the voting process. Both leading candidates hope to claim victory in a runoff scheduled for middle of December. Zimbabwe's law enforcement agents are reportedly on high alert following a recent spate of armed robberies and heinous rape cases across the country. Police spokesperson Charity Charamba confirmed the development, adding that the police were closing in on the suspected criminals, including a gang of rogue taxi drivers who raped and murdered women. Charamba said the suspects were also likely coming from neighboring countries that included Mozambique and South Africa. Manicaland Province Police had since engaged the Mozambique counterpart in an attempt to root out the growing scourge. Authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo have provisionally freed 17 pro-democracy activists who were arrested in the capital earlier this month. The activists were calling on the Congolese people to vote responsibly. One of the groups says they were granted provisional release and expected at the public prosecutor's office on Friday. The 17 young activists, mainly students, were picked up by security forces while fulfilling a mission of civil and electoral education and put in jail in Kinshasa's central Makala province, where they went on hunger strike to press for their release. The authorities accused them of disturbing the peace and civil disobedience as the country gears for general election in December. 11 days ago, British NGO Freedom from Torture cast a spotlight on the DRC, declaring that the army, police and intelligence services regularly tortured political and human rights activists. New York-based Human Rights Watch has also reported on the frequent torture and systematic arrest of people suspected of opposing the regime. When we return, international stories. President Trump dealt a blow at the court over asylum restrictions, and later sport 6 changes in Super Eagles lineup against the Cranes of Uganda. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on, so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and news around the world. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in the Philippines on Tuesday for the first state visit by a Chinese leader in 13 years, with the administration of Rodrigo Duterte under pressure to show there is value in its pivots to China. The state visit comes 2 years after Duterte declared he would pursue a more independent foreign policy, shifting the Philippines away from the United States and towards China in the hope of receiving billions of dollars for infrastructure development. China has pledged about $24 billion in loans and investments, although just 3 of dozens of planned projects have broken ground. A gunman killed a police officer and 2 others at a Chicago hospital before dying in the shooting. Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson says the 4 dead in the shooting at Mercy Hospital and Medical Center included 2 hospital employees, a Chicago police officer, and the suspected gunman. Johnson said the shooting began outside the hospital with a verbal altercation in the parking lot between people who knew each other. A friend tried to intervene and the suspected gunman pulled up his shirt and showed a weapon. Gunfire erupted and the shooter ran inside the hospital where police confronted him. The White House has restored the press credentials of CNN reporter Jim Acosta just under 2 weeks after withdrawing them over an argument with President Trump during a news conference. The reversal came days after a judge ordered the administration to reinstate the journalist's press pass. The White House also issued rules governing future press conferences, which includes allowing only a single question from each journalist. Follow-up questions would only be allowed at the discretion of the president or other White House officials. The letter warned that further action against Acosta will be taken unless he follows the new rules. A U.S. judge has temporarily blocked an order by President Donald Trump that barred asylum for immigrants who enter the country illegally from Mexico. This is the latest courtroom defeat for Trump on his immigration policies. U.S. District Judge John Tiger in San Francisco issued a temporary restraining order against the asylum rules. Tiger's order takes effect immediately, applies nationwide, and lasts until at least middle of December, when the judge has scheduled a hearing to consider a more long-lasting injunction. Trump cited an overwhelmed immigration system for his recent proclamation that officials would only process asylum claims for migrants who present themselves at an official entry point. Civil rights groups sued, arguing that Trump's November order violated administrative and immigration law. French Finance Minister says Carlos Ghosn, head of Nissan Motors, is no longer fit to lead Renault following his arrest in Japan on a $45 million corruption charge. France is a major shareholder in Renault Auto Company. Bruno Le Maire added that he wanted Renault to set up an interim management structure in light of Ghosn's arrest. Nissan said on Monday that an internal investigation had revealed that Ghosn engaged in wrongdoing, including personal use of company money and underreporting for years how much he was earning. He would be fired from Nissan's board this week. The French state owns 50% of Renault, which in turn holds a 43.5% stake in Nissan. Le Maire said he would contact his Japanese counterpart over the matter and reiterated that France's priority was to ensure the stability of the Renault company. Renault shares dropped by 2.6% in early session trading, but the stock having slumped 8.4% on Monday. The United States is considering adding Venezuela to its list of state sponsors of terrorism, but no final decision has yet been made. Analysts say adding Venezuela to the list could limit U.S. economic assistance and impose financial restrictions on a country already suffering from hyperinflation, mass migration, and shortages of food and medicine. Discussions on the issue have moved forward in recent days with strong lobbying from Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who has long pressed the administration to take a tougher stand against the government of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. U.S. says it has found that the 4 countries currently on the list, North Korea, Iran, Sudan, and Syria, have reportedly provided support for acts of international terrorism. Maduro, who denies limiting political freedoms, has said he is a victim of an economic war led by the United States. Still ahead, sport. Super Eagles prepare for a friendly against Cranes of Uganda with 6 changes in the squad lineup. We'll be right back.
You are watching ANN.
If you know it go internet or follow for Twitter, you know it snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you the use Palasa, your phone no the answer. See me see wahala.
to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. Super Eagles coach General has made 6 changes to his starting lineup against the Cranes of Uganda in Tuesday's international friendly. Raw qualified to Super Eagles for the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations Championship after the team had missed out on the previous 2 championships. Raw revealed during his pre-match conference about lining up 2 goalkeepers who didn't play against South Africa. The Niger Football Federation has confirmed that it still owes the Super Falcons their campaign allowances for the first phase of preparations for the 2018 African Women's Cup of Nations in Ghana. The 8-time champions began their title defense on Sunday with a 1-0 loss to Bayana at the Cape Coast Stadium in the first Group B match. ANN News had earlier reported that the team were owed bonuses for the 2 qualifying match against the Gambia in June. Each player is reportedly owed up to $6,000 for the 7-0 aggregate win over the hapless Gambians. NFF has not revealed when the federation would pay the team the allowances for the Gambian match, as well as the team's campaign in Lagos State. But we always owe our players. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.